Good evening, trainers. Here's the long anticipated video on the Dragapult EX deck. I'm going to just go through all the core cards in the 60 card deck. This is all rotation proof as well, so nothing F. We've got G and H cards onwards, so you are rotation proof. Now this is one of those decks where you can borrow off of me. I've got all the real cards that you can borrow off me if you ever wanted to go to a competitive league challenge where you'd have to have the real 60, or you can just play with this proxy deck on a Thursday. So Dragapult EX, it came out Twilight Masquerade, which was earlier last year, and it's been a staple deck ever since, but it's actually become incredibly popular recently, and it is the most played deck at the moment. 20% of people in tournaments are playing this. It won the most recent Vancouver Regionals last weekend, and it also came second at EUIC, so a really, really big deck here. It's also one of those decks that's coming out as one of those league battle decks that you can pick up for £25, so an incredible investment. Just like that Charizard deck, Dreepy has become Dragapult has become the kind of the most popular deck at the moment, and very, very good post rotation as well. So let's get into it. We've got 4 copies of Dreepy. Okay, that's the basic Dragapult as a stage 2 line. So we're going to have Dreepy as our four copies of that basic Pokemon there. We're then going to have 3 copies of Dracloak. Now, usually for stage 2 line, we would only maybe have 1, maximum 2 of the stage 1, but look at that ability. This is what makes Dragapult so good. The ability Recon Directive. Once during your turn, you may look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one of them in your hand, put the other card at the bottom of your deck. So it's got great draw power every single turn, and for that reason, we want 3 copies of Dracloak at least. Most decks play 4 actually. I've gone with 3 in this one as well. So we've got our Dracloaks, and then we've got our Dragapult EXs. We've got Jet Headbutt for 1 colourless energy, so 1 energy of any type for 70, but the second attack is what we're looking at. Phantom Dive for a fire and a psychic, 200 damage, put 6 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon in any way you like. 200 isn't probably knocking out anything to, with 1 hit KO. We're really setting up multiple prize turns. So we've definitely seen, and I've experienced this myself, but I've seen on stream as well in big matches with big players, 4 and 6 prize turns, just setting up those damage counters, that damage on the bench, to then set up some multi-prize turns. It's a Terra Pokemon as well, so it doesn't take bench damage. Stage 2, and it's got 320 HP. Importantly, it's a Dragon type. Now, the unique features of Dragon types is nothing is weak to Dragon type, but Dragon types are also not weak to anything else. So that's one of its real strong points as well. Now, what makes Dragapult so fierce? Because, when it came out, it was still a good deck, but because of that one not being able to 1-hit KO most things, you think about Charizard, that's got 330 HP, or Phantom Dive's only doing 200 damage. This is why we bring in that Dusknoir line. Now, you saw this in the Charizard deck, and it's in this Dragapult deck as well. So we play 3 Duskull, 1 Dusclops, and look at that ability, Curse Blast, if you've forgotten it. Once during your turn, you may put up to 5 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. If you use this ability, this Pokemon's knocked out. You'd think, why is knocking myself out a good thing? Well, because you've put 5 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon, that might be stopping them set up. You're thinking about that Charizard deck with those 50 HP Pidgeys? Well, you can just knock that out straight away with that, or you can lay up a little bit of damage, 5 damage counters, to then hit with something else. But even better than that, if you can get up to Dusknoir, you've got the same ability, Curse Blast, but this time you put 13 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon, and it knocks out your own Dusknoir. Now we're going to see why that's so important later, but just looking at the maths here. Okay, thinking about Charizard, it's a 330 HP Pokemon. If you use your Curse Blast to put 13 damage counters on that Charizard, and then you go in with Phantom Dive, 200 plus 13, or 130, tell me in the comments box on the Google Classroom how much damage that would be doing, and would that be knocking out a Charizard? I'll let you be the judge of that. Okay. Now, one of the most recent additions, again, that's making this such a good deck is Budew. Okay, this little 30 HP Pokemon. Again, you look 30 HP. That's so small HP. It's going to get knocked out easily. But Look at that attack. Itchy Pollen. A free attack, doesn't cost any energy, does 10 damage, but this is why it's so good. During your opponent's next turn, they can't play any item cards from their hand. We're going to look through all the item cards that Dragapult has in it, and they're some of the staple cards in the game. But think about all those cards: Buddy Buddy Poffin, Rare Candy, Ultra Ball, Nest Ball, Counter Catcher, all those item cards that are so useful to the game, and you stop your opponent from doing that. Importantly for Dragapult, you stop your opponent from rare candying. So if you're against another Dragapult, for example, your opponent next turn, they can't play the Buddy Buddy Poffins to get their Pokemon out. They can't play rare candy to evolve up to Dusknoirs or Dragapults. Same with Charizard. If you play the Itchy Pollen, your opponent can't rare candy up to a Pidgeot EX, can't rare candy up to a Charizard EX. You stall the game for a turn, and that might be enough to be able to then just annihilate your opponent's bench with Phantom Dive. 200, 6 damage counters anywhere you like. You might stop your opponent's setup straight away. So Budu, an absolute powerhouse in the game. When I played my own little version of Dragapult with Sarina at EUIC, the 4 rounds that I won, Budu was vital in every single one of those rounds. Such a good card, and it's even got free retreat as well. Incredible. Now the only other Pokemon we play in the deck is Fezandipiti X. We're not really worried about that Cruel Arrow attack. I don't think I've actually seen many people ever use that attack. It's the ability, flip the script. Once during your turn, and if any of your Pokemon were knocked out during your opponent's last turn, you may draw 3 cards. Amazing. Say one of your Pokemon get knocked out, you've Budooed a little bit, your opponent's found a way just to knock that out. You Nest Ball and get your Fezandipiti EX out, you draw 3 cards. Just draw support, one of the biggest things in the game. Remember what I say, 2 most important things in Pokemon: draw support and energy acceleration. Well, Fezandipiti gets your draw support. Let's zoom out a little bit. So that's your Pokemon. I'm going to leave that, going to put those a little bit up here. So then we can look at some of the trainer cards and other cards in the deck that's just going to help you get all of this out. Remember, that's what trainer cards do. Okay, they help you utilize your game plan and get things out. All right, so deck's going to play 4 copies of Buddy Buddy. Let's just get zoomed in again. Buddy Buddy Poffin. Search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon with 70 HP or less. That's going to help you get your Dreepies out, your Dusknoirs out. So we're going to get those there. Let's zoom out a little bit so you can see it. We're going to play 2 copies of Nest Ball. Just helps you get your Fezandipiti EX out. It's the only Pokemon in the deck that's got that's basic, that's got more than 70 HP. So we kind of need a way to search that out. Also going to play Artisan. Thinking about, well, what happens if we come up against a deck that also plays Budu and item locks us? You say, sir, well, I can't use my Buddy Buddy Poffins, my Nest Balls. Well, Artisan, it's a stadium card. Once during each player's turn, they may search their deck for a basic Pokemon that doesn't have a rule box and put it onto their bench. That means you can search for your Dreepies, your Duskulls, your Budoos. You can't search Fezandipiti EX because that's got a rule box in it, but you can search for everything else. And the stadium stays there until your opponent bumps it. Does mean they can use it as well next turn. Not always the best with Dragapult because we do want to kind of wipe their bench out, but we've got it anyway. Okay, very key thing in the deck, rare candies. We're going to need that to rare candy from Dreepy to Dragapult, Duskull to Dusknoir. Now, importantly, most decks with stage 2s would play 4 rare candies. Thinking about Charizard, rare candy, so important. But because of Dracloak's ability, Recon Directive, we don't actually always want to rare candy our Dreepies. We do want to have some stage 1 Dracloaks on the bench, so we've got some draw support. And that's why the deck doesn't play 4 rare candy. It's why also our first turn, we want to go second. We might want to play Budu, or depending on our opponent's deck, we might want to play Technical Machine Evolution. It's another way to get around your opponent's Budu because it's a tool card, not an item card. You attach it to your Pokemon. You need to have an energy on it, but choose up to 2 of your bench Pokemon. For each of those Pokemon, search your deck for a card that evolves from that Pokemon and put it onto that Pokemon. That means we could set up our turn 1 going second. We could set up 2 Dracloaks if we wanted to. We could set up a Dracloak and a Dusclops if we wanted to. So a really good card when you go in your first turn going second. Night Stretchers, we play 3 of them. per Pokemon from a discard pile or your beta basic energy card into your hand. Versatile, okay? And we're going to see why that's really important soon. We're going to play some Ultra Balls as well. That's just going to help us get our Dragapults and our Dusknoirs out. I'm going to have to start putting those there. Now, the A spec of choice is Sparkling Crystal. Remember, that Dragapult's got an awkward energy cost. It's got a fire and a psychic. It's not easy to be able to get that. But Sparkling Crystal, remember, Dragapult's a Terra Pokemon. When the Terra Pokemon this card is attached to uses an attack, the attack costs 1 energy less. That means with a Dragapult with a Sparkling Crystal attached, that means we only have to have either a fire or a psychic energy attached to it. And that makes that just a lot easier to set up. Now, a couple of other item cards. Counter Catcher. We're generally going to be down on prizes, which is quite good to enable Counter Catcher and those multiple prize turns, so we can switch in our opponent's Pokemon. Earthen Vessel. Really good. You can discard a card, search your deck for up to 2 energy of any basic energy of any type, so we can search our decks for a fire and a psychic energy. Rescue Board just helps us get our Pokemon out. Now, if we zoom out a little bit, this is what we've got so far. We're also going to play 3 fire and 3 psychic. It doesn't seem much, does it? But we've got Earthen Vessel where we can get the energy out. We've got that Sparkling Crystal that's going to reduce the energy cost. Plus we've got all those Night Stretchers that can get an energy back from our discard pile back into our hand. So 3 fire, 3 psychic is very standard in a Dragapult deck. Haven't gone through any supporters yet. Supporters are going to help us get the item cards that we need. That's why we're going to play 4 Arven. Search your deck for an item card and a Pokemon tool card and put them into your hand. So very often in our first turn we might want to go for a Buddy Buddy Poffin. We might want to go for, in our second turn, a Rare Candy with that Sparkling Crystal. Amazing. Or if we've got the Rare Candy in hand, we might go for an Ultra Ball and the Sparkling Crystal being our tool card, that we can then start swinging straight away with Dragapult or with Dusknoir if we want to load up those damage counters. So 4 Arven, absolutely stable card, incredible supporter. I'll be so sad when that rotates out next year. So we've still got a whole year to play. 4 INO. This is a really high INO count, but again, like I said, it's a slower setup Dragapult, so you're probably going to be behind on prizes for a little while. So INO, so powerful. Each player shuffles their hand and puts it on the bottom of their deck. If either player puts any cards on the bottom of the deck in this way, each player draws a card for each of their remaining prize cards. Say your opponent's had a really good setup, they've taken 4 prize cards, you haven't taken any yet, you INO, they shuffle their hand, put it at the bottom of their deck, they draw 2 cards, you draw 6 if you haven't taken any prizes. Incredible. Okay, that's how you stall your opponent out. If they can't draw cards, they won't have what they need to finish off the game, and you can clean up. I know, an incredible card. We play 4 in there because you're likely to have, especially in the early game, less prize cards taken than your opponent, unless you've had a really aggressive start with Budu and then you've been able to Phantom Dive. Sometimes we're not going to be down on prizes. Sometimes we're going to be up on prizes and we want to finish the game off. And that's why Boss's Orders is so important. Switching one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active spot. Okay, doesn't matter if we're winning, doesn't matter if we're losing. Play Boss's Orders, that's what we need. Think about all those Pokemon that have got damage counters on because of Dragapult's Phantom Dive. Switch those in. Really, really important for us. So 2 Boss's Orders there is great. And then just a couple of other cards, and these were kind of optional. Professor's Research, just kind of useful. Discard your hand and draw 7 cards, especially if you've only got 1 or 2 cards left in your hand. You get a fresh hand of 7, always nice in any deck. And Experience Share, which is great. So if your Dragapult gets knocked out, one of those energy cards will go to the Pokemon that this is attached to. We don't want to attach this to Budu because Budu doesn't need any energy. Don't really want this on Pheasantipity either. Definitely don't want it on Dusknoir because we're going to, or Duskull because Glop, sorry, because we're going to blow ourselves up. What we want this on is a benched Dracloak or a benched Dragapult or a benched Dreepy, because that will have one of those fire or psychic energy going back onto a bench Dragapult, and then we can swing again. So this is a really good tool that we can get from Arven. So trainers, this is a little bit messy on here, but this is your Dragapult deck. Okay, try it out. After watching this video, try this out. It's the best deck in format at the moment, best deck in the game. After rotation, it's going to be really good as well. Still winning lots of tournaments in Japan. It requires a little bit of maths, but it's also fairly simple to play as well. I want to see some of you playing this at Pokemon Club on Thursdays. Okay, peace out, trainers. Have a good one.